Someone has to do it. 50-50 on characters and weapons sucks so much now, and no gacha should be allowed to do. I hope enough people tell CZN to screw off. The weapon banners have killed my excitement entirely, and I don't think I'll stick with the game now. So my excuse to make a video on Chaos Zero Nightmare, a game with minimal information available that isn't even out yet, is to talk about what makes a good gacha system, as it's been a little bit of a hot topic since it's become somewhat revealed. For those unaware, based on limited playtests in Korea, the gacha has been ironed out to have a soft pity, a coin flip hard pity, better known as the 50-50, and a weapon banner with no guarantees. I was a bit taken aback by the backlash, as I thought gacha players were pretty conditioned to the norm of 50-50s for quite a while now, but also made me realize that more recent and upcoming gacha releases had a lack of it. So let's go over what actually makes a good gacha system, and with limited information I will compare this to Chaos Zero Nightmare where we can, except the cosmetic banner. I want to take another separate look at it once the play test has actually gone live. Myself included, people like to talk that this game is generous, this one is pay to win, and X game is free to play friendly, but what does that even entail these days? Since this is primarily based on player expectations nowadays, I think first we're looking at pities. A hard pity guarantees a player is left with something in so many polls rather than a big fuck you like back in the day. The classic 50-50, as it's called, popularized by Genshin Impact and maybe even started there, but that's harder to trace today. When you hit this hard pity, you're guaranteed to get exactly what you wanted, or you get something of equal rarity, typically in the form of non-limited units. Unfortunately, not all gachas are created equal, so when we spend our hard-earned or hard-bought pulls, we pretty much want what is advertised. And when you get screwed on this deal, it sucks. Your day is ruined, and more or less all that currency or money is gone. The true spirit of gambling. An aspect of this that was definitely popularized by Genshin is the pity carryover. Just like the Grimace Shake, gacha banners are around for a little bit and then gone usually in a couple of weeks. With the carryover, this is great for when you get screwed by pulling and get nothing, because they will still all count toward the next gamble banner. Unfortunately, Hoyo is playing 5D chess with people, and what it has actually done is just created a bunch of gambling addicts. People that will build pity and burn everything they have because it carries over and they can just guarantee the next thing that they want. But regardless of how it all turned out in practice, it's still certainly a benefit to players. Of course, all this pity and 50-50 nonsense doesn't mean much without knowing the rates. Your likelihood of actually getting what you want, not just when you're guaranteed to finally cash out. This brings us into our soft pity. Normally you're guaranteed what you want at say 80 pulls, but a soft pity could kick in at 50, boosting your rates of getting what you want until you do get it, like bumping up your chances from 1% to 5%. Once again, a pretty player-friendly feature and a welcome addition to any gacha. As far as that actual rate is concerned, from game to game, it is nearly pointless. Most gachas these days have such low odds that players are almost guaranteed to hit a soft or hard pity anyway, where you're basically buying whatever's being sold outright rather than actually gambling. Next we have banner frequency and the types of banners. This just boils down to how often are new banners being sold and what exactly are we pulling for. In CZN's case, we have combatant and partner banners, which is essentially just pulling for characters or pulling for weapons with a different coat of paint. As an American, just like my McDonald's combo, I don't want to buy a burger and my fries separate. Just sell me a combo. Especially when we're looking at a free-to-play gacha, typically you're given gems, which you now have to decide whether these are going to a shiny new character or a different weapon. Although not an uncommon practice, overall I think most people aren't a big fan of weapon banners. It's like getting a Batman action figure as a kid, but the Batarang is separate. Who the hell is buying this thing separate? In these banners as well, we have all the garbage we get on the way to what we actually want. Low rarity characters. Now originally I wanted to say these are important to a gacha since you're pretty much guaranteed to get them. It is cool when they're good, usable, or even meta, but at the end of the day, the guy that just spent real money isn't gonna say, oh heck yeah, I got Luke, this is fine. No, they're gonna say, man, fuck Luke, where the hell's my wife Yuki? Looking at it from a free-to-play perspective though, I do think that low rarity characters should at least be viable in all forms of content. Last aspect I want to go over before we finish is the fear of missing out. In a lot of these games, this is the easiest to point out when it comes to holidays. Instead of getting, say, Pinocchio, now you can get him with the silly red hat. Although bad in its own way, what I think is more egregious is when every banner is a limited time banner. This is going to sound like I'm picking on billion-dollar company Hoyoverse, which I am, but it's also the fault of all of the companies that ended up following them thereafter. Before Genshin's time, typically when new characters in a gacha would come out, once their feature banner ended, they would be added into the pool of the rest of the characters you could randomly get at any time. Genshin completely changed the game. These same characters now would be gone forever, until their banners rerun at least. The problem in my opinion doesn't lie in whether or not they come back, but now you're stuck with this worthless pool of launch characters that will progressively get worse and less exciting. Honkai Star Rail has had the same standard pool of characters for 2 years. 2 years of losing 50/50s to the same characters. Now they aren't all complete garbage, but it is disappointing. Instead of maybe randomly getting Casterus, which would be exciting and make 50/50s not so bad, here's your 4th Welt instead. CZN does adopt this, which I would say has been one of the worst practices to come to gachas in the past 5 years. Now with most big points covered, does this mean Chaos Zero Nightmare's 50/50 gacha is a horrible system? Although it will still feel bad to lose your 50/50, I skipped 1 point because I think 50/50 or not, unless you spend money, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, what will actually matter for free-to-play players is in-game economy. CZN could give you 10 pulls a week with a guaranteed pity and a 0.5% rate, or they could give you 20 pulls a week with a 50/50 and a 0.1% rate. As long as actual specific expectations aren't set, they can really do whatever they want. The result for them and ultimately the player will end up the same. One of the best systems in the market, in my opinion, would have to be Limbus Company. What it's chosen to do compared to other games is make the gacha a path to acquiring things rather than it be the destination. There are banners to pull, but characters are also able to be gotten by grinding in-game. You'll have to wait for newer ones to get added, but you can actually completely ignore the gacha and still keep up with the characters and egos if you wanted. Here, instead of pulling, your currency would be going toward more stamina to grind out more characters, but the option is still there to pull if you don't have that kind of time. I think this is a perfect balance as it rewards all types of players and still fits into the theme that it is a mobile game. A lot of people play because they only have a little bit of free time. In conclusion, I'm not saying my opinion is an end-all be-all, because Smilegate can just choose to make these systems worse for players, but I also don't think a 50/50 alone these days means a game is horrible or worse than doo-doo on your shoe. I'd like to hear your opinion on 50/50s in 2025 and beyond though. Is it no longer acceptable or just a bunch of fluff that doesn't really mean much? Thanks everyone for watching, good luck on getting into the CZN playtest, and I'll see you in the next one.